Welcome back to my channel. Today we will learn about the latest dramatic developments in CBS's The Bold and the Beautiful series, where shocking discoveries and high-stakes business negotiations collide in spectacular fashion. This episode brings explosive confrontations, emotional turmoil, and critical business pressure that will leave the Forrester family reeling. Let's dive into the intricate web of secrets, betrayals, and professional ambitions that are threatening to unravel everything these characters have worked so hard to build. The beachfront revelation, when trust shatters in an instant. The atmosphere at the luxurious beachfront property was about to transform from serene to chaotic in a matter of moments. Ivy Forrester had glanced out the window, expecting to see nothing more than the usual Pacific Ocean scenery, when her eyes caught something that made her blood run cold. There, visible through glass panes, was a scene that could only be described as far too intimate for comfort. Will Spencer and Dylan were engaged in a moment that crossed the line from innocent to deeply suspicious. The proximity between them, the body language, the way they were positioned together, all of it screamed of a connection that went far beyond what would be appropriate in a situation involving someone's committed relationship. For Ivy, who has always been protective of her family members and deeply invested in their well-being, this sight triggered an immediate and fierce protective response. Her concern for her niece, Electra, transformed into pure, unbridled anger that coursed through her veins. This wasn't just about what she was witnessing. It was about the potential destruction of trust and the violation of the commitment that Electra had placed in Will. Without hesitation, without pausing to consider alternative explanations, Ivy made the decision that many would make in her position. She stormed into the house with the intention of confronting both Will and Dylan immediately. The confrontation was intense and emotionally charged. Ivy's voice rose as she accused Dylan of betraying the trust that Electra had placed in her relationship. The words come fast and furious, each one laced with the hurt and anger of someone who felt they were protecting a loved one from deception. Ivy's accusations were pointed, her tone sharp, and her message absolutely clear. Dylan had crossed a line that should have never been crossed, and Ivy was not going to stand idly by while her niece was being made a fool of. The defense that falls on deaf ears. Will Spencer attempted to intervene, recognizing that the situation had spiraled out of control and desperately wanting to provide context that might diffuse the situation. He tried to explain what had actually transpired in those moments before Ivy witnessed the scene. According to Will's account, what appeared to be something more sinister was actually an innocent accident. Dylan had simply lost her balance during a dance practice session and had fallen directly into his arms. It was an unfortunate coincidence, an unintended moment of physical contact that could easily be misinterpreted by someone who didn't understand the context. This explanation, reasonable as it might seem to an objective observer, fell completely flat with Ivy. She was in no mood to hear excuses or alternative interpretations. Her mind had already made its judgment, and she dismissed Will's defense with a wave of her hand and a look of utter contempt. The disdain in her eyes was unmistakable. She viewed this explanation as nothing more than a pathetic attempt to cover up misconduct. In Ivy's view, there was no innocent explanation for what she had seen. The physical proximity, the positioning, the entire scenario could only mean one thing: betrayal. The dismissal of Will's explanation demonstrated how quickly anger can override reason and how powerful a first impression can be, even when that impression might be fundamentally flawed. Ivy's conviction in what she believed she had witnessed was absolute, and no amount of explanation from Will was going to change her mind in that moment, the threat that changes everything. As Ivy's anger reached its peak, she made a declaration that would set off a chain reaction of consequences. With a voice sharp as steel and eyes blazing with determination, Ivy announced her intention to expose Dylan's actions to Electra. She promised in no uncertain terms that the moment Electra returned from her business trip, Ivy would sit down with her and lay out every detail of what had occurred at the beachfront house. This wasn't a threat made in anger that would be forgotten by morning. This was a solemn vow, a commitment to disclosure that Ivy seemed absolutely determined to follow through on. For both Will and Dylan, Ivy's announcement created a desperate situation. They now found themselves hanging by a thread, suspended in a state of crisis. The clock was ticking. Electra would eventually return from her business obligations in San Francisco, and when she did, the truth, or at least Ivy's version of the truth, would come out. This created an impossible scenario for Will, who desperately needed to either convince Ivy of the innocent nature of what occurred or find some way to explain the situation to Electra, before Ivy could poison her mind against Dylan. The situation had become dire, with enormous consequences hanging in the balance. A relationship that had presumably been solid and trusting now teetered on the brink of destruction based on a single moment of Misinterpretation? The stakes couldn't be higher, and the window of opportunity to control the narrative was rapidly closing. San Francisco, the weight of professional expectations. While the drama was unfolding at the Los Angeles beachfront property, Steffi Forrester found herself thousands of miles away, entirely focused on a completely different kind of crisis, one that could potentially affect the financial well-being of the entire Forrester Creations empire. Steffi had traveled to San Francisco for a presentation that couldn't have been more important if she had tried. This wasn't just any ordinary business meeting. This was a critical opportunity to unveil Forrester Creations' newest jewelry collection to significant potential clients who could represent millions of dollars in revenue. The presentation itself was meticulously planned and carefully orchestrated. Steffi was working with two essential individuals to make this showcase a success: Dottie Bright, a prominent businesswoman and potential major client, and Joseph, her trusted assistant, who was there to help manage all the logistical details. For Steffi, this wasn't simply about presenting pretty jewelry and hoping for the best. This was about demonstrating her value as a designer, her credibility as a businesswoman, and her ability to deliver quality products that would meet the sophisticated tastes of high-end clientele. Steffi approached the presentation with the professionalism that had become her trademark. She was composed, focused, and entirely dedicated to creating the perfect impression. Every detail mattered: the way the jewelry was displayed, the way she spoke about the pieces, the way she carried herself in front of these potential clients. This was Steffi at her best, bringing all her skills and experience to bear on a single objective: securing a major deal for her company. The distraction that threatens everything. However, Steffi quickly noticed something that didn't fit the narrative of professional excellence she was trying to create. Electra, who was supposed to be her partner in this crucial endeavor, was not displaying the same level of focus and dedication. Instead, Electra appeared visibly unsettled, her attention wandering away from the presentation and towards something else entirely. Her mind seemed to be elsewhere, preoccupied with concerns that had nothing to do with jewelry or potential clients or sales figures. Steffi's keen business sense immediately picked up on what was happening. She recognized that Electra's body language and demeanor indicated that something was troubling her deeply. The younger woman kept checking her phone, glancing away from the clients, and displaying the kind of nervous energy that could undermine the entire presentation. From Steffi's perspective, this was a critical problem that needed to be addressed immediately and directly. Electra's distraction stemmed from her intuition. She had a nagging feeling, almost a sixth sense, that something was going wrong back in Los Angeles. Her instincts were telling her that Will and Dylan were involved in some kind of situation that wasn't right, that some kind of relationship drama was unfolding in her absence. This inner voice was growing louder and more insistent, making it increasingly difficult for her to concentrate on the professional task at hand. The knowledge that her personal relationship might be in jeopardy while she was stuck in San Francisco was eating away at her concentration. The stern reminder of priorities. Steffi, recognizing the problem but having absolutely no patience for it in this moment, took action. She pulled Electra aside and delivered a stern reminder about where her priorities needed to be. The message was clear and unambiguous: personal relationships and emotional concerns needed to be set aside, at least temporarily, in favor of professional obligations. Steffi made it explicitly clear that Electra needed to compartmentalize her worries about Will and Dylan and focus entirely on the business matter at hand. The jewelry collection presentation represented a massive opportunity for Forrester Creations. This wasn't small-time business. These were million-dollar deals that could potentially transform the company's position in the market. Steffi's argument was logical and compelling. Electra owed it to the company, to Steffi, and to herself, to bring her full attention and best self to this presentation. Whatever was happening back in Los Angeles would still be there after the presentation concluded. The clients in front of them wouldn't wait, and the opportunity wouldn't remain open indefinitely. This moment highlighted the constant tension that exists in the lives of ambitious professionals who also have personal relationships. The pull between career obligations and personal concerns is never easy to navigate, and Steffi's insistence that Electra focus on the presentation while perhaps seeming cold or insensitive was rooted in a very real business necessity. Million-dollar deals require complete focus and dedication. Any lack of attention, any distraction could result in the loss of the entire opportunity. The collision of two worlds. What makes this situation particularly complex is that both scenarios are equally significant in their own right. Electra's concerns about her relationship with Will are completely valid and legitimate. The idea that something inappropriate might be happening between her boyfriend and another woman is genuinely alarming and worthy of serious attention. At the same time, Steffi's insistence on professional focus is also entirely justified. The presentation in San Francisco represents a tremendous opportunity that could benefit not just Steffi personally but the entire Forrester family and the company they've all worked so hard to build. The collision between these two worlds, the personal and the professional, creates a situation where there is no perfect answer. Electra cannot simultaneously give her full attention to the jewelry presentation while also addressing her legitimate concerns about her relationship. Something has to give, and in the corporate world that Steffi operates in, it's typically the personal concerns that must take a back seat, at least temporarily. The ticking clock and rising tension. As these parallel storylines unfold, the tension in the narrative continues to escalate. In Los Angeles, Will and Dylan are facing the approaching storm of Ivy's threatened revelation. They have limited time to either convince Ivy that her interpretation of events was incorrect or to prepare Electra for what she's about to hear. Every passing hour brings them closer to the moment when Ivy will share her version of what happened, potentially destroying Electra's trust in Will and creating a rift in their relationship. In San Francisco, Electra is struggling with the internal conflict between her professional responsibilities and her personal anxieties. She's trying to maintain her composure and appear professional in front of important clients, all while her mind is churning with worry about what might be happening back in Los Angeles. Steffi's stern reminder has temporarily suppressed Electra's expressed concerns, but it hasn't made them disappear. The worry is still there, just beneath the surface.